Coming up on today's episode of PSN, we look ahead to the year 2026, the future, some might say. We have bold predictions of what we're expecting in the year to come. You won't want to miss it. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Smyth. As always, joined by co-host Nathan Clement, but also being joined by producer of the program, Jeff Ryman, as the three of us look ahead to 2026. Nathan, Jeff, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It's the three amigos, the three best friends are together again. So I'm looking forward to getting our fortune telling going. I got my fortune telling shirt on right now. So hopefully we can have accurate predictions for the future, but I'm really excited to be here with you three.
Yeah, I wish I had like a sort of a crystal ball beside me, but I don't to predict the future, but I'll do my best to at least try to predict, although knowing from my betting status, don't always trust what I say, so we'll go with that. Well,
okay, first off, two things. Nathan, your predicting shirt is just a ugly Christmas sweater. So I don't know how I feel about that. And Jeff, you can say you're not a good bettor, but in the your, mine, and Nathan's NFL pool, you're currently leading with the best records. So you may actually have a better predictive mindset than you think. So needless to say,
put that pump away. You're inflating my ego a little bit too much this early in an episode here, Alex. So I appreciate it, but be cautious.
Well, see, and you've deflated mine.
See, I balance it out. I inflate with one person's ego, deflates another. But this is how you get someone taking a bold stance, a bold prediction. Then down the road, when we replay the clips, they have to eat crow. That's my real strategy here today. So we each have some different storylines that we're going to be following along or paying attention to in 2026. So why don't I get started? I will share my first one. I feel a lot of them are going to be around the Paralympics in some way, shape, or form. It is easily the biggest storyline of 2026, especially in the world of parasports. But I'm going to take a more specific approach here. I'm going to focus in on the Paralympic Villages, especially that of the one in Cortina, because we talked about this on the program already. They, instead of actually having a fully kind of situated and serviced Paralympic or Olympic village, it's a series of mobile homes that are all kind of side by side. There's rooms that are split into two with two athletes per room. And one of the rooms are deemed to be more accessible than the others, which is, okay when it's the Olympic time. How is that going to work for the Paralympic time? Not to mention, to get to the common areas for those Paralympic villages in Cortina, it's a 10-minute walk to get to any of the common areas, and that is, at the best of times, not to bring into account, mobility issues, inclement weather, because we are in the wintertime in the Dolomites that this is going to be located. I have a lot of questions on how successful, how seamless and smooth this situation is going to be for the athletes competing in Cortina. What are your guys' thoughts on the Paralympic Village situation? I think this is going to be a story that doesn't go away, Nathan.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing. It's a tough conversation because there's so many red flags that have popped up with just how far the village is, how far the dorms are going to be from the actual village core, and just for accessibility purposes, it's definitely going to be tricky. And this is often the case with a lot of Olympic and Paralympic villages. Is there's issues, there's problems. I've been lucky to be in two. Rio definitely had its flaws in just distance and space. However, this is a Winter Games, and there's so many factors that play into weather, that play into different circumstances and different situations. So I hope it can be solved. I hope they can put a system out there that's going to be good for the athletes, that's going to be accessible. But right now there's so much up in the air, and even looking at the hockey rink too, it's still like a lot of stuff that isn't solidified and isn't confidently put down yet in 2025, and hopefully will be by the time the games get going in March 2026.
Yeah, definitely a storyline that we should be following, because you're right, Nathan. I mean, you've lived it, and having a place to safely rest your head, I think, is something that is extremely crucial for these athletes, right? I know, Nathan, you've talked about it. Another one that comes to mind is your former teammate, Keely Shaw, where she says she needs her sleep, right? You know, with her disability, you need a good sleep. And if these athletes are in little trailers in the middle of mountains that are in, if there's a blizzard going on and you need to get to a common area or to your event, like, I feel like it's we always stumble back to the accessibility of the buildings. Not even, I'll take it even one step further, and Nathan, you mentioned it, is the venues as well. Like that hockey rink there were videos circulating the internet last week. It is not looking good. Like, there are barely seats in there. It is still heavily under construction. I think we're now, as of this recording, maybe 65-ish days away from the Olympics, and then the Paralympics obviously follow that. So they have around 60 days to get this thing up and running. And then, yeah, the quarters in which you're going to stay in don't sound overly ideal. But what I will say, just to broaden this out and talk about accessibility in general, how many buildings have you guys ever been in that are 100% accessible? You know what I mean? Like, this is really hard to get. I would love to see it. I think it's extremely important, but I feel like we should have seen this coming. And Nathan, you mentioned it. You've been to Rio, you've been to Paris. They each had their flaws. As sad as it is, I think it's kind of reality at this point that I don't know if they'll ever get it right. And I'm allowed to say that because I'm not an athlete, Nathan, but I saw you have your hand up, like, as if you wanted to chime in on this. So take it away, Nathan.
Exactly. And I always got to be careful what I say as a current athlete at the moment, at the time. But when you have organizing committees, it's often just like last minute trying to get everything done. And there's been games in the past. And I even think back to Vancouver in 2010, where they had so many flaws and so many things that they needed to take care of hours and minutes before the opening ceremonies, or even after the opening ceremonies, with getting snow on some of the mountains. So there always seems to be problems and issues around the games. Even at games we look back on and say, hey, that was run well. You can go through and just pickpocket some different things. But why I raised my hand and why I brought it up was I think back to the Invictus Games that happened in Vancouver in 2025. Now, the big thing is, and speaking with some agencies in Vancouver leading into the games, they pushed for making sure Vancouver was more accessible. Vancouver had better sidewalks, had better construction guidelines, so wheelchair users could access the roads, or someone who needed that kind of support. And there was a lot of strides and information done there. So it comes down to these Olympic and Paralympic committees to really be those difference makers and really make those changes and advocates. And hopefully there's someone right now working for Milano Cortina that's really pushing that, the para and disability awareness, because that's what's needed to be done. There's success stories, but there needs to be someone pushing that forefront and really hammering it home, because it's not like it's out of malice. Often it's usually people are just so rushed with deadlines, they're not thinking, but that still is inexcusable.
I wonder quickly too, but I know we have other storylines we want to follow, but clearly we are very passionate on this one. I wonder also too if it's going to be helpful for these upcoming games, the fact that you have different pockets of the different regions. Obviously, Milan is set to host the hockey competitions. You have Cortina, which is hosting some of the alpine events, and then you have Tessera, which is hosting, the biathlon and the para Nordic and I think curling events. or that may be in Cortina as well. The fact you're not forcing one location to basically accommodate all the athletes, like in Paris, where you had basically centralized venues and structures, that you have these kind of pocket satellite sites that the scale is a lot smaller. So maybe the amount of work or the construction needed or the infrastructure needed, it's a lot less stress on the local kind of regions that they're going to be set up in. But does that just give them a way out to kind of cheap out or cut some more corners? Because, it's not that many athletes. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out here.
You mentioned it, Nathan, that when these things are being built or even in discussions, accessibility seems to be an afterthought, or at least a last second thought. Whereas you mentioned the Invictus Games, I'll mention the World Championship wheelchair basketball tournament that's going to be happening in Ottawa next year. When we had their CEO or their VP on, Karen, she was talking about it, and they're literally bringing in stuff to make the city more accessible. They're reaching out over a year in advance to restaurants to mention, hey, there's going to be a higher level of wheelchair usage during this period. Can you do anything about it? Can you add ramps? Can you do whatever? Same thing with the hotels. Same thing with the playing. They're literally bringing in basketball courts to in and around where the athletes are going to be staying. That's the level of organization that I think that the Paralympic Committee should take note of. And maybe eventually we'll see a games that is that level, because right now it seems like the complete opposite right now.
Yeah, it's going to take time. It's going to take work. But in this ever-growing world of social media, I feel like there's some great voices and great people speaking about it. And it's just getting the right people in the right positions that can really be a difference maker. But speaking of difference makers, my big thing to look out for, and I feel like this is no surprise where I'm going with this, is a clash of the Goliaths that's going to be happening in para ice hockey in Milano Cortina, as it's shaping up to be a Paralympics and a para ice hockey title that we will never forget, as Canada has gone through multiple different changes of coaches, programs, return of one of the greats in Greg Westlake, and how they're building towards potentially dethroning the U.S. for the first time since 2006, when Canada last won gold in Italy back in Torino. Now, the American team star-studded with Declan Farmer and Jen Lee in goal. This is going to be a exciting, fast, and dynamic games and series just to see what happens there. But there's also some other players that could be spoilers for Canada and the United States, and Czechia and China. Still steps behind, but I have a feeling this is going to be the story of the year in 2026 is Canada, USA in the gold medal game.
Well, this is my bold prediction that when those two teams play in the Paralympics, it's going to be the most watched para ice hockey game ever. I stand by that. I think, at one point it may have seemed like a bold prediction, but I think the closer we get, the more we talk about it, it seems quite a tame goal. I may have to revisit what I deemed a bold prediction, but 1,000%. I am entirely in agreement with you. And when we had our conversation with Boris Rybalka, it's so interesting hearing him. It's like, yes, they lost at the Para Hockey Cup in Dawson's Creek. It's like, but they're getting closer. He was so confident, like it's going to be golden when we get to Milano Cortina. We're building things up, like we're putting in a new kind of identity, a new plan for how we want this team to play. And teams like China and Czechia that had given Canada some pause in the years past, they blew both of those teams out of the water in Dawson's Creek. So I think the team's feeling very confident heading into Milano Cortina that they can rewrite a bit of recent history and come away with a gold medal in that tournament and in that competition. It's just the big question is, as you already mentioned, Are they going to be playing in Milan? Are they going to be playing somewhere else? That's, to me, the biggest storyline when there's like, yes, the game is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be the focus, but it's also going to be, where is that game taking place?
Yeah, but just like Boris said when he was talking to us, he doesn't care. Control what you can control. If they play indoors, outdoors, underwater, it doesn't matter. They're just going to control what they can control. That was sort of maybe a cliche answer from him, but it was a great one. It was fantastic. But they'll be ready and prepared to play wherever that may be. We're hoping it's at the actual rink, because that would be sad if it's not. But this team is definitely primed and gearing up for a major battle. And Nathan, I know you watched the tournament in Dawson Creek really closely. I caught some of the highlights. And we know when it's Canada, USA, the aggression, that physicality picks up another notch. I feel like it was cranked just a little bit more than it typically is. Because again, that was that last tournament that they'll get a chance to play USA before the Paralympics. So you can sort of, feel the tensions rising just a little bit. So they're going to come at each other's throats in that tournament. Alex, I don't doubt your bold prediction. I think you're spot on, and I'm absolutely looking forward to that matchup as well. Guys, if I may go into my first selection here, and I teased it during our last episode, that para-alpine team. Incredible athletes that are on that team. We mentioned in our previous episode Molly Jepson, Callie Erickson, and guide Sierra Smith. You have Kurt Oatway. There's a lot of Alexi Guimont. Those athletes are all at the top of their game. You look at their podium finishes, there's lots of ones, there's lots of twos, and there's lots of threes. But more importantly, there's a lot of golds. And that is incredible. And I almost feel like they've almost been underappreciated a little bit, just because the other skiers, I'm talking about the Nordic and the biathlon athletes, have been so elite and dominant. They've been almost taking all of that spotlight. The para ice hockey, which we just talked about, they still are taking a lot of that spotlight as we preview the Paralympics. And same with wheelchair curling. I mean, we talk about everything a lot, but I feel like this Alpine team has almost gone like swept under the carpet just a little bit, or just we haven't talked about it as much as I feel like we should, because each and every single one of those athletes that is currently on this team and heading to Milano Cortina has a legitimate shot at hitting the podium, and more importantly, not just a podium finish, a number one finish with potential world records, Paralympic records, personal bests, and so much more on the line. I just feel like they don't get their flowers as much as they should, and this is my moment to give them that. So I think the Paralpine team deserves a lot of credit as we head into 2026.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree with you more, Jeff. They certainly are kind of the forgotten child of the Winter Paralympic lineup, for better or for worse. Like they quietly have been so successful in this quadrennial. Obviously, we've talked about the injuries and the recovery that people like Molly Jepson have been undergoing in this quadrennial. It's like things are just coming together at the right time for them. They're set up for success. Obviously, there's going to be facing some stiff competition in that field at the games. I think that's one of the reasons where it's like, the potential's there. It just, when you compare it to like the biathlon or the Nordic, it's like, the competition or the other nations that are going to give them trouble is fewer than when you look at the alpine side. Like there's a lot. It is a stacked field that each of these athletes are going against, but they've proven time and time again, you doubt them or you don't have all the confidence in them, and they show up. They come away with podium finishes, and that means something, to build that confidence, to build that momentum, to keep knowing, hey, I've already beat this person, or I've already, known I can beat this person. And if I do what I need to do, then I'm going to be successful. I think the biggest question mark will be, what are the conditions going to be like during the games on the mountain? Because we've seen this more and more frequently as you get into March. The weather conditions become more and more unpredictable. What are the conditions of the snow and the runs going to be? Is it going to be something that the athletes are going to have to adjust to, or tweak their strategy because, it's not favorable for how they would normally like to run the race, or how they've run the races in the past? So that's going to be the biggest hurdle or barrier, I think, for these this team to make it to the podium and see the success that they want to. Nathan, your thoughts?
I agree with both of you. This is a team that's really had their core in place, that first made the games together in 2018 in Pyeongchang. Like, you look at Kurt Outway and just the dominance that he's had on the hill since he's really burst onto the scenes. But even with Molly Jepson, now that she's healthy, Alexis Guimond, these are young athletes, but they're also very varied experience. But where I think it's going to get fun and exciting is going to be with our debutante, Kalle Eriksson and Sierra Smith, and how it is going to be an arms race in every single event in the VI category since they've burst onto the scenes, with competitors like Giacomo Bertinelli as well as Jonas Angiers. They're going to be really 1, 2, 3 on the podium, and just wherever they're going to land is going to dictate pretty well that podium throughout the games. But you're even looking at December success, and as we record today, Canada's picking up medals. Molly's gone back to back to back on the podium. Alexis Guimond's won races in the Super G, and now he's dominating as well, and Kalle Eriksson's getting back on that podium. So this is a fine and well-oiled machine, but you said it perfectly there. There's concerns about snow, about conditions, but this is an experienced roster, an experienced squad that knows what to do, that knows how to handle any terrain, any differences. They were all in Slovenia last year with the weather and everything that went on there. But I think this is going to be the team that's kind of like that underdog, as you said, that under the radar team, as you said, Jeff, but they could really boom, and you could see everyone pick up a medal at the games. But Alex, is there any other big headlines you're looking forward to in 2026?
For me, we've already talked about it. Like the big three that I had circled was actually so it was the villages, it was the hockey rink, not the game itself, but the rink and what that's going to look like. And the third one Jeff mentioned, which was the World Championships in wheelchair basketball coming to Ottawa in September. Like, that is massive. Not only for the sport, but obviously for the sport in Canada and for Ottawa to host it. And like we can kind of dissect a couple of the differences. Jeff did a beautiful job just kind of highlighting how, the organizing committee for that, the approach that they've taken in terms of, finding accessible accommodation, making sure that the locations and the amenities are there for the athletes. And I had forgotten, Jeff, that we also found out that they were going around to the different businesses and restaurants and finding out who was wheelchair accessible, who was willing to put in an effort, so that they could then highlight and share that information with the athletes. So the athletes are informed that, hey, I'm here in Ottawa, I got an evening off, I want to go grab a bite. Oh, well, here's a list of restaurants that have already been vetted that are wheelchair accessible that I know I'm not going to have a problem going with. 99% of the time, you're going to be more likely to go to one of the restaurants on that list. So it can be a big boon for businesses, and it gives the athletes the confidence as well. So I'm very keen to see how successful the World Championships are, because they're set up for success. I'm really optimistic that it's going to be a model going forward for hosting parasport events in Canada, and that you can kind of draw on some of the legacy of that competition like even the idea of going forward, it's like, well, for purchasing, I think it was 4 hardwood courts that they install in the convention center that then they will donate after the game. So you build a bit of a legacy that you can bring it back to underserved communities as a result. So there's so much great things that I think you can draw from that.
It's one of those events that you just think about and listen about and look forward to, because I've never seen or heard about this level of preparation going into to make an event accessible. They're going well above and beyond. Just within the competition itself, obviously the venues are going to be fully accessible, and they're making the city as accessible as it can, which again is easier said than done, because most cities are not 100% accessible. We all know that. So they're trying their best to sculpt the city as well as their event. It's just incredible. And it sounds like the community is really embracing it. Like you said, Alex, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because those businesses want that extra business, but then if they also make it accessible, then it's a win-win, right? So, it's just an absolutely incredible feature that they're doing. I wish them all the best, and that's something that's going to be on our bucket list to cover, hopefully in 2026, whether we're there in person or we're virtual, we're for sure going to cover that. So I'll leave that as a producers. Stay tuned.
When you think about major sporting events in Canada, you look back at Vancouver 2010, the Winter Olympics and Paralympics as monumental moments in the fabric of Canadian sport, whether it's OTP, just the legacy of this games, and Ottawa 2026 for the World Championships is setting up to be another edition of that, where this legacy is going to be felt for decades to come. And just having the opportunity and the work that they've been doing to make the city accessible and make it accessible for the 336 athletes that are going to be coming out, plus the 1,200 participants who are going to be there. I have a feeling this is going to be big crowds, loud events, and just an exciting time where we're going to look back 10, 15 years down the road and see Ottawa 2026 as a monumental moment for wheelchair basketball, but also adaptive and parasport in the National Capital Region, but also across Canada. And I can't wait to see how Canada does. We talked about the 2025 Youth Pan Am Games, the success there, but also the changing of the guard, the transition of these rosters and what they're going to be able to do on the court is a really exciting and optimistic time for wheelchair basketball in Canada.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's a perfect example for how it goes beyond just what the sports story is going to be, but the legacy and the impact that it's going to have on the community from there. Nathan, I'm going to give you the last word as we look ahead to the season. Any final thoughts or storylines that you're going to be keeping an eye on?
I'm going to give you a bold prediction.
Oh, I like it.
I think this is going to be the most successful This is going to be the most successful Winter Paralympics in Canadian sport history. Right now, the medal total is 28. We go through this roster. We talk about alpine. We talk about hockey. We talk about Nordic. This is a team built for success in this ever-growing evolution of professionalization of parasport and Paralympic sport. This is a team that's hungry. This is a team that's proud. And this is a team that's really going to make an impact. And with the coverage and everything that's going to be done for the games, I think this is going to be one of those games like Paris that's going to boom the Paralympics forward into every television and every room around the world.
Jeff, thoughts on that bold prediction?
Bold. I think you're onto something here, Nathan, because again, we've gone up and down that roster. There's really no weak points. You look at the snowboarding team, there's some up and comers. You obviously have Tyler Turner, who was earlier this, or maybe about a month ago, he was named the Male Paralympic Winter Athlete of the Year, not just for Canadian athletes. The entire Paralympic committee voted him as the Winter Male Athlete of the Year. Pretty high praise. You've got Chase Nicklin, hopefully vying for a spot, who we just had on. Sandrine Hamel, who we've had on the show a couple of times. She's vying for a spot. You look up and down, skiing, all the other teams, the team sports, they're all very much in medal contention. Alex, just one last thing that I want to squeeze in here is the 2026 Commonwealth Games. There is going to be an integration of the para side of things, kind of like how we saw at the 2025 Canada Summer Games. Some of the sports include para athletics, para swimming, 3-on-3 wheelchair basketball, which Canada's doing really, really good in, para bowls, para track cycling, and para powerlifting, something that we love to watch and indulge in as well. So the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow next year is something that is on our radar as well. Just wanted to mention that on the way out.
I mean, there's so much to look forward to. I can't wait. Nathan, you got me pumped for the Paralympics. I'm 100% on board with that bold prediction. Jeff, thank you for bringing in some other sports and competitions for us to be focused and mindful on beyond the Paralympics. 2026 is shaping up to be a great year. I can't wait to share it with you two here and for you at home. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.